Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Yeah, that was a heady intro. I don't know. Hopefully I can live up to those expectations. I'll just start out by saying we are a mobile app intelligence company. And so we provide estimates on every mobile app in the world in terms of the performance they're doing. So I'll speak generally to this because I do this a lot. I'm a hardcore fantasy football player, fan, whatever you want to call it. For people who don't, I know this is a worldwide show we're producing here, DJ. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's just the National Football League, American football, and it's a fantasy game where the players you pick get points by what they do in real life. So it's a game that my college friends and I play. And you want to pick the best players. And so there's all these different stats and data points that go into it. For a receiver, what's their average depth of target? How many catches do they have per game? How many yards per catch, yards after catch? There's all this different data, whether it's raining outside, how does that impact them, whether they're home or away or all these other things. And so we're constantly diving through Excel sheets because there are providers like ESPN and other sports networks that will provide this data to you because they want you to be more engaged, right? And so I found myself doing math when I was supposed to be just picking players and things like that. And so there's not necessarily one decision that I've made, but I've looked through and poured through tons and tons of player data to try and find out each week, what players should I start based on the current situations, whether it be the weather, whether it being where they're playing, whether it be, an injury that someone's out or not. And so just week after week, from September through January, every Sunday morning, you will find me in some Excel spreadsheets trying to determine who to start based on, incoming data from providers like the NFL. So that's kind of my experience with data, even before I began at Apptopia and really understood the full scale of it. Yeah, so I think everyone's turned toward data. How could you not? Just through the rise in my own industry, I've seen more and more different companies and industries being hungry for data. So, it used to just be App Annie, who's like a competitor of ours, and really their focus was just mobile games. But since then, it's vastly expanded, right? There's App Annie, there's Apptopia, there's Sensor Tower, Mobile Action, Priority Data. So just the sheer demand of it. And again, I'm speaking from, the mobile app side of data, but obviously there's data on just about everything in this world as everything becomes digitized. But just my own industry, my own sector has grown from the demand, and we've moved from things like mobile games to these massive companies like Volkswagen, McDonald's, Target. All of them are hungry for app data, and I'm sure data from plenty of other providers. I would say there's three big sectors that I see personally from my life experience that have really used data the most. I think number one, first and foremost, is just the finance sector. And they are big clients of mobile app data as well, right? They are, to understand even lumber companies, they're using satellite imagery to try and figure out, okay, this picture was taken over this lumber yard, in January, and this picture was taken in March, at the end of the quarter. How much lumber is still in the yard? How much did they move? How much were they able to sell? And so there's they call it alternative data that they're using to try and get a beat on earnings and try to understand how companies are performing before everyone else knows and hears it when they report earnings. And then same thing with mobile app data. It's they want to look at Snapchat, how many daily active users did it grow by each quarter, and they can use app data to figure that out. So I think finance is probably getting the biggest return on investment. But the other two I would say are advertisers and then product makers, right? Advertisers, they want to understand people's emotions, feelings. How do I convince people? Where do they want to be convinced? Is it a billboard? Is it on their phone? Things like that. And they can get that data back. They can A/B test. And then product makers, what do people want? What do people like? I know our own product team here, they try to understand, even just through rudimentary data, customer surveys, literally just asking people how they want. That is what they want. That is a form of data and what they like. So there's various forms of data, but, finance sector, advertisers, product makers. From my personal experience, I think they make the most use of data, and it really drives their day-to-day decisions of what they're putting out. So for me at least, I think people have been doing, some level of market research forever. And again, that to me counts as data. But I really started first hearing about this in 2012. There were all these headlines around big data. Everything was big data this, big data that, right? And it was just a mad dash to acquire this data. But then they realized, like, what are you going to do? There's so much of it. Like, how do I make a decision off of these massive Excel sheets with, like, millions of rows and columns? And so there's a whole industry that just sprung up on how to visualize your data, how to harness it, how to use it and acquire it. And so, just getting your hands on this data was one thing, but being able to understand it, being able to actually make decisions on it was a whole nother one. And then in terms of why in 2012 did this happen, I liken it just to, we had the rise of, it was really the rise of, like, the digital economy, right? The rise of e-commerce, smartphones were coming out. And so this digital data, which is just a lot easier to get, especially in aggregate, than something like survey data, it was just so much more easy to collect, aggregate, and move digitally. So I think that's really where it came from, just the rise of the internet and digital personal devices. In terms of a story of where a company was able to make out here, I'm going to do a little, selfish story, and I know this because they're an Apptopia client, Redemption Games, but they're a really successful publisher. Yeah, they have investments from, Supercell, AppLovin, so they're a pretty decent deal. And we learned that this is so cool for us, at least, that they were able to, double their revenue a month or two after having access to our data. I'm not sure of the actual timeline, but what happened is you can see app updates and you can see an overlay of data, downloads. So when they produce this update, are downloads increasing? Is revenue increasing? Is user engagement increasing or decreasing, right? And so there was a specific social feature that the team was looking into, but they realized it was, like, costly to implement. And so they wanted to know that it would be worth it. And so what they did was they found other games that had this social feature. They looked at when they implemented it, and they just watched and saw what it did for their performance. And they realized that it actually turned into a major revenue driver for these other apps. And, they were essentially able, so they implemented it, and they were able to, double their revenue just through that. But it cost a lot to implement, so they weren't sure. And, just by being able to see through the data, did this work out for other companies or not, without having to, kind of put your neck on the line, I think is really a really powerful use case for data and understanding, where your competitors make mistakes, where they have their successes, and you can learn from them. Data paralysis is real. No, I deal with it myself when looking through our data, right? You want to, what metrics make sense to look at? Where should I start? And I've come to kind of develop my own routine when I'm looking into a certain market and want to understand it. But I think for our customers, and really anyone, especially if you're starting, it can get overwhelming. And so you need to kind of, like, people say, Taco Bell at least says, think outside the bun, think outside the box. But I actually think when you're starting, you should kind of create a nice little box to sit and get comfortable in that box. And then you can break outside the box. So set your priorities. You should think about, what are my KPIs, my key performance indicators, and what are my app strengths and weaknesses, and then judge by that. So maybe your goal, so maybe your KPI or your goal is that you want to grow downloads 10, 15% month over month, something like that. Maybe you have a loyalty program that's really good, that's driving success for you, but your payment process or something in your app is full of bugs and there's some issue there, right? So what I would do is I would want to set up alerts. Not every data provider can do this, but I think a lot of them can, and I know Apptopia can, set up alerts for these competitors that have these loyalty programs so that you can see, okay, when their downloads grow by 10% month over month, I get an alert. So I can go and see, okay, who is that? What did they do? And I can look at their loyalty program. I can compare it to mine, see if they're growing. And then maybe, their constantly hitting my goal of growing downloads, but my payment process is buggy or something is buggy. And so I want to look into them and understand, okay, do they have a better payment process? And then if they do, or if they have a better payment SDK or whatever it is that they're doing, maybe I want to implement that within my own app. So I think just having like a rudimentary, what is one goal? Just start with one goal. What do I want to do? Look at competitors, see if they're hitting that goal, see what you can learn for your own app. And then once you get comfortable with that, bring in other data, get more complicated, I guess, or complex as you go along. But don't be afraid to start small, because if you pour it all in at once and try to do it all at once, you're going to end up simplifying it anyway, and you're just going to lose that initial start time. It's going to take you a lot longer to start seeing success and results. So siloed data sucks. And even within, so things are so much different for like a very large corporation compared to a small corporation. I've seen a lot of large corporations where even within their own company, so not even across platforms, which we'll get to in a second, but even within their own company, there's siloed data and they can't access it. We deal with a few large corporations here at Apptopia where they can't even get their actual app's data. That's how siloed things are. And so they're using our estimates as stand-ins for their own actuals, which is just crazy. But yeah, so in terms of between all the different platforms, there's not like a ton you can do, but again, depending on your team's sophistication, there are companies that will build their own platform, will build their own data platform to harness all these things together. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of custom work. I think maybe only companies like your Googles, your Facebooks, things like that, really have the capacity to build something custom like that. But I think it's about working with providers that integrate better with each other. So, for example, my company, we integrate with Salesforce, Bloomberg Terminal, Bloomberg Enterprise Access Point, Snowflake, and Noma. And so these are organizations or platforms that their specific purpose might actually be to aggregate different data, or they're just large platforms like Salesforce that we just know everyone uses. And so to not integrate ourselves with Salesforce, we're doing ourselves a disservice, right? Because we want you to access our data. We want you to use our data. And I think other companies do too. We're not the only ones. So I think as more time goes on, people understand the issue of siloed data, and they are moving to be able to create these integrations. But before you go and buy more data sets, I think that should be one of the big questions you ask. It's like, hey, who do you integrate with? Because I want to see, what do I already have? And then can you fit into my puzzle or not? And if you can't, we got to see, is the data worth it? If you can, great. And again, if you can't, maybe I move on to another provider. But I think you just got to find people who are able to help you integrate their data sets into your existing platforms. Every company's so different. It's hard to do a one size fits all, right? But have you ever seen the movie Scarface?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the line. The number one rule is don't get high on your own supply.
Yeah.
But that is the exact opposite of what we do here at Apptopia, and what I think a lot of companies should do. We absolutely get high on our own supply. That's for us. That's the show. That's our currency, is the data. That's what we're selling. We're selling the data. We're selling our customer support and our user interface. But the data is the star of the show, and we always want that. We never want that to be forgotten. So when I'm writing on the blog, or we're making a video, or we're doing a report, right? The data is the star of the show, because what we want to do is we want to show potential customers what is possible with this data. Now, a lot of mobile first, mobile only companies, they might already know this and understand this. But like I said earlier, brands like Target, McDonald's, and others are seeking out mobile app data, and they're not necessarily specialists in that. They don't necessarily understand what type of market research they should be doing, and things like that. And so it's up to myself and my team to be like, here's the fast casual or fast food industry, and here's what insights you can learn about it. And even if let's say I do that around fast food, right? Even though it's specific to that industry, someone else from another industry can look at that research and just mentally replace McDonald's with Walmart or Amazon, whatever, or even a fishing app, whatever industry they're in, right? And understand what type of research can be done. So we also call it just like eating our own dog food, getting high on our own supply, whatever you want to say. We just want to make the data the star of the show, make whatever it is that you offer the star of the show, show people, what can be done with it. And then the other thing I'll just say is that for us specifically, whatever we produce from a research or data perspective, we want to show people what they can do, but we also try to make sure that it's like relevant in the moment, right? Maybe it's culturally relevant, maybe it's relevant to a real world event, or even something like a decent sized product launch, because we want to, part of this is making your brand spread further than you can do it yourself. And so the reason we do that is because we want to get media attention. I think that's a great question for me specifically, because Apptopia is a small team. At one point the marketing team was actually just me, and we're growing now. But even as we're growing, our team is definitely still significantly smaller than our competitors. So I think part of it, and part of like what we like to say our DNA is we say stay scrappy. And so this isn't all of it, but like part of it is grinding and wanting it more, right? When you talk to an athlete, not that I'm an athlete, but it's like who wants it more, and so I think part of it is that commitment, and a little bit of that grind. But I also think when you're a smaller player and you're trying to get noticed, like you need a personality. If you're not going to be your brand, not just like you as a person, I'm sure your personality is great, but like your brand needs a personality. If you're not going to be the best in your space, or at least not yet, or the biggest in your space, like you better be the most interesting and the most likable. And so you got to craft that voice. And how do you do that? You just create consistent content with that voice, right? That you have defined on your blogs, newsletters, podcasts, videos, etc. And get people to like you, have interesting things to say. Sometimes being a contrarian helps. And another part of our strategy, I would say, is like once you've kind of cultivated a voice, people like you, you have that likable factor, you've had some success, partner up with other companies, try to, obviously if they're bigger, that's better, but try to get someone, at least with an audience that is the size of your company or bigger. Again, we're a small company, but we've created marketing content in collaboration with you guys at MoEngage, which has been great.
Thank you.
Google, Facebook, Liftoff. So companies that just, have a little more reach than us, or well, a lot more reach for some of those companies. You just want to try to get the most bang for your buck. Anything that you're creating, you want to see, how far can I get this to travel? I've spent an hour or two when I create something sometimes searching for people I've never heard of before on LinkedIn, certain influencers, say I produce a post having to do with fintech, and I'll just go through LinkedIn and I'll find someone who's been posting about, financial technology, and I'll literally sit there and look at the amount of likes and comments that person has. And if what they're saying is resonating with what content I've just produced, and then I'll send it to them. And a lot of times it's a great fit for them. And now they've posted it on their LinkedIn, and I'm getting that natural spread, but you got to work for it, right? So just make your effort go as far as it can. And then our data here at Apptopia, again, it lends itself very well to press. Like I've said, it's our currency there. Not every company is going to have that, but every company does have like some value. And so whether it be, the expertise of your people, or the data your company have might actually be interesting. Like you don't know, I would throw it out there. And so any insight, expertise, or data that you can provide to the press that you're willing to provide, that's good. That can help spread your message. VentureBeat.com, TechCrunch.com, those things, have a lot more website traffic than your own. So try to get press when you can, where you can. But that's like a whole nother episode, navigating media relations. So yeah, it's a lot of seed planting, before you might bear fruit. So for me, when I think about communication, I think about it, for me, it's like, it's goal oriented, and it's about the quality of communication. And I think this goes for brands to people, and then people to people, whatever it is. And so my number one sentence, phrase, whatever it is, I would say is just, you need to be able to walk in someone else's shoes. And I know that's like a little cliche, but what I mean by that is whatever you want to say or convey, the message, you need to imagine that you are that other person. Like actually like try and almost like a method actor would in Hollywood, right? Like try to take on that person's personality, persona, just the way they think of things. And obviously this works a lot better if you know the person intimately, but even if you don't, there are some context clues that you can take to try like, this is a person in this situation, I might think like this. So just really view things through their eyes. And then as that person, now imagine you're hearing that message from you. And what does it feel like to hear that? How are they going to take it? Did they understand it? What questions might they have? Okay, if you don't think that went well, we can phrase it differently. But I think trying to, a lot of times I've learned, the hard way from this. I'll just like start saying things, rattling them off. And then later, in the day, in the shower, when I'm like thinking over my day, I'll be like, oh, I actually probably sounded like an asshole saying that. And it's just because I finally took the time in the shower when I had a moment to think, to be like, oh, this person probably heard me. This is what I actually said, and this is how they heard it. And that's not my intended, that wasn't what I intended for them to understand or hear that way. So I really think that goes a long way, just trying to like really actually trying to like be in that person's mind for a second and make sure that they receive your message well. Honestly, I think I'm a big fan of, especially for the work that I do, like I really just need to be reading articles on the internet, just like full-fledged articles. So in terms of a big resource for me for that is the Tech Meme River, techmeme.com/river. And it's exactly that. It's like a river of tech news. It's an aggregator, it's a news aggregator, right? But it's specific to tech. And so I keep that up all day, every day. And that just gives me all my tech news in one spot. And so it could be, it's from anywhere, New York Times, TechCrunch, places I've never heard of, things like that. But I have that river open every day. I am a fan of podcasts. So going back to earlier when I said fantasy football, there's people who are, again, I have a communications background. So I've had my hand in data for a while now because of my work at Apptopia, but that is not my background. So for fantasy football, I listen to podcasts of people a lot smarter than me who are also delving through the same data. And I want to hear, their interpretation of the data as well as mine. So I love fantasy football podcasts. Netflix, because I have it and I don't have Disney Plus. You know what I absolutely love? My favorite streaming service, and I have not tried all of them. So I'm not, but I have tried a few, and my favorite is actually YouTube TV. I love YouTube TV. It's more for live TV. There is like on-demand stuff, and I do watch some of that. But I just think it has everything that I personally want to watch on it, and it's live TV, which is great. And I think the navigation's pretty simple to use. But honestly, all streaming services, it's really about the content that they have, because
exactly, yeah.
Navigating it, all of these things is pretty easy. They're pretty good. It's 2020, right? Everyone knows what they're doing. So I haven't had Disney Plus yet. I'm sure it's wonderful, but I think probably the content that I like is more often on Netflix and YouTube TV. I think my favorite daily ritual is actually my work ritual, but I enjoy it because I enjoy what I do. I make myself a pot of coffee, and I have actually like a very I call it strict, but I enjoy doing it, routine of like different things to look at. So part of it is looking at the Tech Meme River I just told you about. Every day I go into, I have an iPhone, I open up my iPhone and I look at the top 50 games. I look at the top 50 apps every single day. I do a little perusing through LinkedIn. I check a few specific markets that I've built out in Apptopia. I do some Twitter searching, and I have this check, and I check out my competitors' blogs. If anyone's watching this, I read all your stuff. And every day I go through that checklist, and I just get smart on the day, and I love it. And I start pretty early in the morning. I wake up around 6:30 a.m. my time. I love coffee. I brew my own coffee, and I just get smart on the day, and I really enjoy that. I have to admit, my superhero knowledge is less than other people. Like I haven't seen every Marvel movie. I've probably seen every other Marvel movie. But either way, I'm going to go ahead and say Batman.
Okay.
And the reason I think I'm going to say Batman is because, you know, he's human, right? He's not like Superman. He's not almighty. He can't solve every problem on his own or just as is. So like, you know, Batman had to, you know, he's got to work for it. He's got to understand what he's doing. He's got to plan a little more. You know, he's not bulletproof. And so I think data isn't bulletproof. And it can at times mislead you, especially if you don't have a full picture. You can make something I like to say internally is that you can make data say anything you want it to, right?
Yeah, totally.
So you want to be smart about it. And I think Batman, you know, Bruce Wayne, he comes from a place of engineering and science and thinking, and he's human. He can make mistakes. So I'll go there. I'll go Batman. So my absolute favorite is video. At Apptopia, we do not currently do that, really. I'm an equal opportunity eater. And so what I mean by that is like, it really depends what I'm in the mood for. But I'll tell you, like I have my sushi spot, I have my rib spot, but I think I'll go good old pizza. And so if I'm getting a pizza, I like, there's this local coal-fired oven place. It's just this like massive brick oven that I guess is heated with coals. I don't know. And it's just cool to see them like slide the pizza deep in there, and it like brings, like brings like that primal feeling, like that we're like cooking with fire, and I really enjoy that. And I'll tell you just my order. It's very simple. I don't do anything crazy with my pizza. I just like a good old mushrooms and onions, and I'm happy. I'm a massive Boston Bruins fan. That's an NHL hockey team. Like I had season tickets for 3 years, and I just want to know when they're coming back and when I can watch them again. Like it makes they're powerful to me. Like it makes, if I am having like a bad day, man, like, and I think like, you know what, Adam, it's okay. Later tonight at 7 or 8 p.m., the Bruins are going to play, and you're just going to relax and watch. And I love looking forward to that. And I don't know when I'm going to be able to look forward to that again. And so that's my greatest curiosity. It's nothing earth-shattering, groundbreaking. Professionally, I've screwed up a few things. And that's why I like working at Apptopia, and I think as small companies, you have to do this, is you do have to take some level of risk, and you learn, you know, this is nothing new. Everyone's heard this.
Right, yeah. You have to experiment,
you get smart quick. So I've sent my CEO to New York for no reason before. I thought I was getting an interview on live TV. Yeah, I thought this was happening. I was pretty sure it was happening. And so I sent my CEO, L. Ron Sapir, God bless his soul, he's so great. I said, like, within the first 2 weeks of me starting at Apptopia, I sent him on a train to New York. And then as he was literally walking to the studio on his way there, and I sent him a text, and I was like, hey, turn around. And I was so scared to talk to him, but we worked it out, and I know the mistake I made, but yeah, so I sent him to an interview that ended up, you know, never happening. I decided, you know, once I wanted to do this great big report. Now we do reports, and they're good, I hope. But you know, when I just started there, I was like, oh, I have this idea for a great report that I want to do. And we were even smaller then, right? So like, we really like pooled our resources to make this thing happen. It was a total flop. It just absolutely sucked. Looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, that was just a piece of trash. And, you know, but we learned, we went over it, and we looked at, you know, competitive intelligence. We looked at other people's reports, and we realized like, okay, this was not good. Here's why it wasn't good. And we learned from that. So, I mean, professionally, I failed a ton. And I grew up playing sports, you know, baseball. I played a lot of baseball. And so, you know, I've had my ass handed to me, you know, on the field as well. So I think that those are all failures. Yeah, so I'll start from the top. I think, you know, things were different in 2012, as we talked about. 2014, 2016, you know, it feels like things are changing all the time. So things were different then, but today, like, most of your competitors, or all of them, have access to Apptopia or a similar product. So the question isn't, you know, do I need this data? What can this data do for me? like, and hopefully I've already answered those questions, you know, over the course of this interview as well. But the question is really, do I have a product and a provider that can enable me to wield, you know, the mightiest data sword that I can to slay my enemies? And so you want a tool that's intuitive, right? It's easy to use. It's not, do I need the data? It's like, how can I use it? You know, you want it to be powerful enough to do things right within the tool and not, you know, maybe you're not super tech savvy. I'm not. I don't really know how to tap an API, and a lot of our customers do, but we want our tool to be powerful enough that you can run reports, run comparisons, and just come to conclusions just by looking at the data in our web tool. You know, and you want to ask yourself, we talked about integrations earlier, you know, do I have the smartest team, most helpful team, the best looking customer support team out there? And if you don't, you know, maybe you want to send an email to humans@apptopia.com and see how we can help. As far as like our roadmap and upcoming stuff, I do not know the full extent of it, I'll be honest. But David Katz, he's our head of product. His like list is miles long of what he needs to do in terms of new products, product features, product updates. If you're an Apptopia customer, I'm sure you've seen us, you know, create a lot in a small amount of time. And everything David and his team are doing, they're doing it to make your life easier. And if you're a customer listening to this and you're in the Apptopia tool, there will be like a little red dot that you'll see every few days pop up in the top right corner. You click that, and that's the list of updates that we're pumping out to you guys.
Got it,
and things like that. So just stay tuned for that. We're having a good time as a company, and yeah, I know it's like bad times out there for everyone all over the world. It's a crazy global phenomenon. So I just wish everyone the best and to stay safe and try to stay sane and figure out ways to have fun where you can. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Maybe we can do this again.